Welcome to Slothful Slumber, the podcast where we transform the vast knowledge of the internet into a gentle lullaby for your mind. I'm your host, Luna Dreamwell, and I'm here to guide you on a journey to tranquility through the soothing cadence of Wikipedia articles. Each episode will delve into the most wonderfully mundane and sleep-inducing topics, helping you drift off into a realm of serene dreams. So find your comfortable space, close your eyes, and let the dull hum of information carry you into a restful slumber. Now, let's embark on tonight's voyage of tranquil learning as we explore a topic so peacefully uneventful, it just might whisk you away to the land of dreams. This Wikipedia article is titled Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army is a collection of terracotta sculptures depicting the armies of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. It is a form of funerary art buried with the emperor in 210 to 209 BCE with the purpose of protecting him in his afterlife. The figures, dating from approximately the late 200s BCE, were discovered in 1974 by local farmers in Lintong County, outside Xi'an, Shanxi, China. The figures vary in height according to their rank, the tallest being the generals. The figures include warriors, chariots, and horses. Estimates from 2007 were that the three pits containing the Terracotta Army hold more than 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots with 520 horses, and 150 cavalry horses, the majority of which remain in situ in the pits near Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum. Other non-military terracotta figures were found in other pits, including officials, acrobats, strongmen, and musicians. History. The construction of the tomb was described by historian Sima Qian, 145 to 90 BCE, in Records of the Grand Historian, the first of China's 24 dynastic histories, written a century after the mausoleum's completion. Work on the mausoleum began in 246 BCE, soon after Emperor Qin, then aged 13, succeeded his father as king of Qin, and the project eventually involved 700,000 conscripted workers. Geographer Li Daoyuan, writing 6 centuries after the first emperor's death, recorded in Shuijingzhu that Mount Li was a favored location due to its auspicious geology. Famed for its jade mines, its northern side was rich in gold, and its southern side rich in beautiful jade. The first emperor, covetous of its fine reputation, therefore chose to be buried there. Sima Qian wrote that the first emperor was buried with palaces, towers, officials, valuable artifacts, and wondrous objects. According to this account, 100 flowing rivers were simulated using mercury, and above them the ceiling was decorated with heavenly bodies, below which lay the features of the land. Some translations of this passage refer to models or imitations. However, those words were not used in the original text, which also makes no mention of the Terracotta Army. High levels of mercury were found in the soil of the tomb mound, giving credence to Sima Qian's account. Also, the emperor is well documented for building monumental statues in human form during his reign, such as the 12 metal colossi. Later, historical accounts suggested that the complex and tomb itself had been looted by Xiang Yu, a contender for the throne after the death of the first emperor. However, there are indications that the tomb itself may not have been plundered. Discovery. The Terracotta Army was discovered on the 29th of March, 1974, by a group of farmers, young Shifa, his 5 brothers, and neighbor Wang Puji, who were digging a well approximately 1.5 kilometers, 0.93 miles, east of the Qin Emperor's tomb mound at Mount Li, Lishan, a region riddled with underground springs and watercourses. For centuries, occasional reports mentioned pieces of terracotta figures and fragments of the Qin necropolis, roofing tiles, bricks, and chunks of masonry. This discovery prompted Chinese archaeologists, including Zhao Kongmin, to investigate, revealing the largest pottery figurine group ever found. A museum complex has since been constructed over the area, the largest pit being enclosed by a roofed structure. Necropolis. The Terracotta Army is part of a much larger necropolis. Ground-penetrating radar and core sampling have measured the area to be approximately 98 square kilometers, 38 square miles. The necropolis was constructed as a microcosm of the emperor's imperial palace or compound, and covers a large area around the tomb mound of the first emperor. The earthen tomb mound is located at the foot of Mount Li and built in a pyramidal shape, and is surrounded by 2 solidly built rammed earth walls with gateway entrances. The necropolis consists of several offices, halls, stables, other structures, as well as an imperial park placed around the tomb mound. The warriors stand guard to the east of the tomb. Up to 5 meters, 16 feet, of reddish, sandy soil had accumulated over the site in the 2 millennia following its construction, but archaeologists found evidence of earlier disturbances at the site. During the excavations near the Mount Li burial mound, archaeologists found several graves dating from the 18th and 19th centuries, where diggers had apparently struck terracotta fragments. These were discarded as worthless and used along with soil to backfill the excavations. Tomb. The tomb appears to be a hermetically sealed space roughly the size of a football pitch, 100 by 75 meters. The tomb remains unopened, possibly due to concerns over preservation of its artifacts. For example, after the excavation of the Terracotta Army, the painted surface present on some terracotta figures began to flake and fade. The lacquer covering the paint can curl in 15 seconds, once exposed to Xi'an's dry air, and can flake off in just 4 minutes. Excavation site. Pits. 4 main pits, approximately 7 meters, 23 feet deep, have been excavated. These are located approximately 1.5 kilometers, 0.93 miles, east of the burial mound. The soldiers within were laid out as if to protect the tomb from the east, where the Qin emperor's conquered states lay. Pit 1. Pit 1, which is 230 meters, 750 feet, long, and 62 meters, 203 feet, wide, contains the main army of more than 6,000 figures. Pit 1 has 11 corridors, most more than 3 meters, 10 feet, wide and paved with small bricks, with a wooden ceiling supported by large beams and posts. This design was also used for the tombs of nobles and would have resembled palace hallways when built. The wooden ceilings were covered with reed mats and layers of clay for waterproofing, and then mounded with more soil, raising them about 2 to 3 meters, 6 feet 7 inches to 9 feet 10 inches, above the surrounding ground level when completed. Others. Pit 2 has cavalry and infantry units, as well as war chariots, and is thought to represent a military guard. Pit 3 is the command post, with high-ranking officers and a war chariot. Pit 4 is empty, perhaps left unfinished by its builders. Some of the figures in Pits 1 and 2 show fire damage, while remains of burnt ceiling rafters have also been found. These, together with the missing weapons, have been taken as evidence of the reported looting by Xiang Yu and the subsequent burning of the site, which is thought to have caused the roof to collapse and crush the army figures below. The terracotta figures currently on display have been restored from the fragments. Other pits that formed the necropolis have also been excavated. These pits lie within and outside the walls surrounding the tomb mound. They variously contain bronze carriages, terracotta figures of entertainers such as acrobats and strongmen, officials, stone armor suits, burial sites of horses, rare animals and laborers, as well as bronze cranes and ducks set in an underground park. Warrior figures, types and appearance. The terracotta figures are life-sized, typically ranging from 175 centimeters, 5.74 feet, to about 200 centimeters, 6.6 feet. The officers are typically taller. They vary in height, uniform, and hairstyle in accordance with rank. Their faces appear to be different for each individual figure. Scholars, however, have identified 10 basic face shapes. The figures are of these general types: armored infantry, unarmored infantry, cavalrymen who wear a pillbox hat, helmeted drivers of chariots with more armor protection, spear-carrying charioteers, kneeling crossbowmen or archers who are armored, standing archers who are not, as well as generals and other lower-ranking officers. There are, however, many variations in the uniforms within the ranks. For example, some may wear shin pads while others not. They may wear either long or short trousers, some of which may be padded, and their body armors vary depending on rank, function, and position in formation. There are also terracotta horses placed among the warrior figures. Originally, the figures were painted with ground precious stones, intensely fired bones, white, pigments of iron oxide, dark red, cinnabar, red, malachite, green, azurite, blue, charcoal, black, cinnabar barium copper silicate mix, Chinese purple or Han purple, tree sap from a nearby source, more than likely from the Chinese lacquer tree, brown, and other colors including pink, lilac, red, white, and one unidentified color. The colored lacquer finish and individual facial features would have given the figures a realistic feel, with eyebrows and facial hair in black and the faces done in pink. However, in Xi'an's dry climate, much of the color coating would flake off in less than 4 minutes after removing the mud surrounding the army. The acrobats. The acrobats are a series of terracotta sculpture from Pit K 9901, displaying an advanced understanding of human anatomy. The original function of these statues remains unclear, but they are described as either acrobats or dancers. Their number was relatively few compared to the warriors in uniform, probably about a dozen. The figures are essentially naked, except for a loincloth. These figures are very vivid and less stereotypical than the soldiers, especially through the dynamic treatment of the musculature and bone joints. Some of the men are very lean, while others have massive bodies. Several of them are shown in the process of moving or making gestures. These terracotta statues demonstrate an advanced mastery of the depiction of the shapes and proportions of the human body. Influences. Since the time of their discovery, the figures have been noted for their exceptional stylistic realism and individualism, with assessments having found that no two figures share the exact same features. The earliest note on this aspect was that of 20th century art historian German Hafner, who, in 1986, was the first to speculate on a possible Hellenistic link to these sculptures, due to the unusual display of naturalism relative to General Qin era sculpture. The art of the Terracotta Army originated from Western contact, originated from knowledge of Alexander the Great and the splendor of Greek art. This idea was also generally supported by Duan Qingbo, director of the excavation team at the First Emperor's Necropolis from 1998 to 2006, or by Professor Lucas Nicol of SOAS. Duan Qingbo also noted the close similarity of the Terracotta Army with the Central Asian Kalchayan statuary, in style as well as in technique. Li Shuzhen, senior archaeologist from the Mausoleum Site Museum, acknowledged Western influence, but insisted on Chinese authorship. We now think the Terracotta Army, the acrobats, and the bronze sculptures found on site were inspired by ancient Greek sculptures and art. But although the terracotta warriors may be inspired by Western culture, they were uniquely made by the Chinese, and we found no Greek names on the backs of terracotta warriors, which supports my idea that there was no Greek artisan training the local sculptors. Others have argued that such speculations rest on flawed and old Eurocentric ideas that assumed other civilizations were incapable of sophisticated artistry, and thus foreign artistry must be seen through Western traditions. Darrell Wilkinson of Dartmouth College has instead argued that the Qin-era display of sculptural naturalism, alongside that of the pre-Columbian Moche culture in Peru, indicate that the Greeks did not invent naturalism, and that naturalism is not the product of any one culture's civilizational genius. Dr. Raoul McLaughlin, an independent researcher on Roman trade, said there is no Greek influence on the Terracotta Army, and emphasized the differences in artisanship, construction material, and symbology. Precedence and legacy. Only very few figurines are known from before the time of the Terracotta Army, so that its human and animal depictions must have appeared dramatically new to contemporaries. Only rare and very small terracotta warrior figurines are known from the end of the Zhou dynasty in 4th-3 RD century BCE, such as the Tarapo horse rider, the first known representation of a cavalryman in China, from a military tomb in the Tarapo cemetery near Xianyang, Qin state of the Warring States period. The rider wears Central Asian, Scythian-style clothing, and his high-pointed nose suggests he is a foreigner. But these early statuettes lack the naturalistic and realistic quality of the Qin Terracotta Army. The Terracotta Army left some legacy, however, as funeral terracotta armies are known from later dynasties, although in a less stern and militaristic style, and with much smaller statuettes, such as the Western Han Yangzhewan Terracotta Army, 195 BCE, or Yangling Terracotta Army, 141 BCE. The human-sized monumental style of the Qin Emperor was thus very short-lived and would not reappear until the 4th-6th centuries CE, with the onset of monumental Buddhist sculpture in China. Construction. The terracotta army figures were manufactured in workshops by government laborers and local craftsmen using local materials. Heads, arms, legs, and torsos were created separately and then assembled by luting the pieces together. When completed, the terracotta figures were placed in the pits in precise military formation according to rank and duty. The faces were created using molds, and at least 10 face molds may have been used. Clay was then added after assembly to provide individual facial features to make each figure appear different. Studies have shown that there is strong resemblance between the statues and the region's modern inhabitants, which led some scholars to theorize that the high level of stylistic realism stems from the figures being modeled on actual soldiers. It is believed that the warriors' legs were made in much the same way that terracotta drainage pipes were manufactured at the time. This would classify the process as assembly line production, with specific parts manufactured and assembled after being fired, as opposed to crafting a figure as one solid piece and subsequently firing it. In those times of tight imperial control, each workshop was required to inscribe its name on items produced to ensure quality control. This has aided modern historians in verifying which workshops were commandeered to make tiles and other mundane items for the terracotta army. Mass grave pit of the necropolis workers. A workers' grave pit was discovered and excavated in 2003. 121 skeletons were retrieved. The individuals were mostly from 15 to 40 years old, with an average height of around 1.7 meters. Craniometric as well as genetic studies were made to try to understand the workers' origin. According to Duan Qingbo, head archaeologist and director of excavations at the mausoleum from 1998 to 2006, DNA analysis showed that the workers exhibited even larger genetic diversity than the modern Chinese population, combining ethnic Han profiles with a great proportion of workers who would be classified as ethnic minorities in modern China. Weaponry. Most of the figures originally held real weapons, which would have increased their realism. The majority of these weapons were looted shortly after the creation of the army, or have rotted away. Despite this, over 40,000 bronze items of weaponry have been recovered, including swords, daggers, spears, lances, battle axes, scimitars, shields, crossbows, and crossbow triggers. Most of the recovered items are arrowheads, which are usually found in bundles of 100 units. Studies of these arrowheads suggest that they were produced by self-sufficient, autonomous workshops using a process referred to as cellular production or toyotism. Some weapons were coated with a 10 to 15 micrometer layer of chromium dioxide before burial that was believed to have protected them from any form of decay for the last 2,200 years. However, research in 2019 indicated that the chromium was merely contamination from nearby lacquer, not a means of protecting the weapons. The slightly alkaline pH and small particle size of the burial soil most likely preserved the weapons. The swords contain an alloy of copper, tin, and other elements, including nickel, magnesium, and cobalt. Some carry inscriptions that date their manufacture to between 245 and 228 BCE, indicating that they were used before burial. Scientific research. In 2007, scientists at Stanford University and the Advanced Light Source Facility in Berkeley, California, reported that powder diffraction experiments combined with energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy and micro X-ray fluorescence analysis showed that the process of producing terracotta figures colored with Chinese purple dye, consisting of barium copper silicate, was derived from the knowledge gained by Taoist alchemists in their attempts to synthesize jade ornaments. Since 2006, an international team of researchers at the UCL Institute of Archaeology have been using analytical chemistry techniques to uncover more details about the production techniques employed in the creation of the Terracotta Army. Using X-ray fluorescence spectrometry of 40,000 bronze arrowheads bundled in groups of 100, the researchers reported that the arrowheads within a single bundle formed a relatively tight cluster that was different from other bundles. In addition, the presence or absence of metal impurities was consistent within bundles. Based on the arrow's chemical compositions, the researchers concluded that a cellular manufacturing system similar to the one used in a modern Toyota factory, as opposed to a continuous assembly line in the early days of the automobile industry, was employed. Grinding and polishing marks visible under a scanning electron microscope provide evidence for the earliest industrial use of lathes for polishing. Exhibitions. The first exhibition of the figures outside of China was held at National Gallery of Victoria, NGV, in Melbourne in 1982. A collection of 120 objects from the mausoleum and 12 terracotta warriors were displayed at the British Museum in London as its special exhibition, The First Emperor, China's Terracotta Army, from the 13th of September 2007 to April 2008. This exhibition made 2008 the British Museum's most successful year and made the British Museum the United Kingdom's top cultural attraction between 2007 and 2008. The exhibition brought the most visitors to the museum since the King Tutankhamun exhibition in 1972. It was reported that the 400,000 advance tickets sold out so fast that the museum extended its opening hours until midnight. According to the Times, many people had to be turned away, despite the extended hours. During the day of events to mark the Chinese New Year, the crush was so intense that the gates to the museum had to be shut. The Terracotta Army has been described as the only other set of historic artifacts, along with the remnants of the wreck of the RMS Titanic, that can draw a crowd by the name alone. Warriors and other artifacts were exhibited to the public at the Forum de Barcelona in Barcelona between the 9th of May and the 26th of September 2004. It was their most successful exhibition ever. The same exhibition was presented at the Fundación Canal de Isabel II in Madrid between October 2004 and January 2005, their most successful ever. From December 2009 to May 2010, the exhibition was shown in the Centro Cultural La Moneda in Santiago de Chile. The exhibition traveled to North America and visited museums such as the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco, Bowers Museum in Santa Ana, California, Houston Museum of Natural Science, High Museum of Art in Atlanta, National Geographic Society Museum in Washington, D.C., and the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. Subsequently, the exhibition traveled to Sweden and was hosted in the Museum of Far Eastern Antiquities between the 28th of August 2010 and the 20th of January 2011. An exhibition entitled The First Emperor China's Entombed Warriors, presenting 120 artifacts, was hosted at the Art Gallery of New South Wales between the 2nd of December 2010 and the 13th of March 2011. An exhibition entitled L'Empereur Guerrier de Chine et son armée de terre cuite, the Warrior Emperor of China and his Terracotta Army, featuring artifacts including statues from the mausoleum, was hosted by the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts from the 11th of February 2011 to the 26th of June 2011. In Italy, from July 2008 to the 16th of November 2008, 5 of the warriors of the Terracotta Army were displayed in Turin at the Museum of Antiquities. And from the 16th of April 2010 to the 5th of September 2010, 9 statues, including officials, lancers, and an archer, were displayed at the Royal Palace in Milan at the exhibition entitled The Two Empires. Soldiers and related items were on display from the 15th of March 2013 to the 17th of November 2013 at the Historical Museum of Bern. Several terracotta army figures were on display, along with many other objects, in an exhibit entitled Age of Empires, Chinese Art of the Qin and Han Dynasties at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City from the 3rd of April 2017 to the 16th of July 2017. An exhibition featuring 10 terracotta army figures and other artifacts, Terracotta Warriors of the First Emperor, was on display at the Pacific Science Center in Seattle, Washington, from the 8th of April 2017 to the 4th of September 2017, before traveling to the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to be exhibited from the 30th of September 2017 to the 4th of March 2018, with the addition of augmented reality.